All right, let's dive into something pretty fascinating. The world where luxury fashion, sustainability, and NFTs all collide. On the surface, it sounds like a perfect match, doesn't it? Going digital should mean being greener. But what if it's not that simple? New research is showing there's a hidden catch, a real paradox that could be a huge problem for even the most eco-friendly brands.
So, this brings us to the big central question of this whole thing. Is it possible for a green innovation to actually backfire and end up hurting a brand's reputation? It just feels wrong, right? But the study we're digging into today shows that the answer is, surprisingly, a big yes.
So yeah, we're about to unpack a really interesting study that shines a light on a major puzzle for luxury brands. They're all trying to be innovative. They're trying to be sustainable, but they're running into this weird psychological roadblock with customers that can have some pretty serious and unexpected consequences.
Okay, so to really get our heads around what's going on here, we need to quickly get on the same page about a few key ideas. Think of these as the essential building blocks the researchers used to set up their whole experiment.
First up is this concept called dematerialization. It's basically the shift away from physical stuff to digital experiences. The classic example is moving from a giant collection of physical CDs to a streaming service like Spotify. You get way more value, more music, with way less plastic. In fashion, this could mean digital clothes instead of physical ones. Next, of course, is the NFT, the non-fungible token. The easiest way to think about it is like a unique digital certificate that proves you own something. It's all recorded on a public ledger called the blockchain, so it's totally verifiable. This is the tech that lets brands create real scarcity and value for digital items.
And that brings us to the digital twin. This is the hybrid model that a ton of luxury brands are playing around with right now. So imagine you buy a real physical designer jacket, and you also get its official digital version as an NFT. It's kind of the best of both worlds, right? It connects your physical life with your growing virtual one. Okay, so that leaves us with three different kinds of products to think about. You've got your classic physical-only item, you've got the purely digital-only product, like an NFT you'd use for an avatar, and then you have that hybrid digital twin we just talked about. These three are exactly what the researchers decided to test.
So, how do they actually put these ideas to the test? I mean, how do you figure out how people really feel about these new kinds of products? Well, they designed a few pretty clever experiments to find out.
Now, to make sure the results were clean, the researchers did something smart. They invented a fictional luxury brand called Vikram. This way, they knew people were reacting purely to the product concepts themselves, not bringing in any love or hate they might have for a real-world brand. It's all about the idea, not the label.
And you can see their setup right here. It was really straightforward. They ran 3 different studies, showing people luxury items, a backpack, a jacket, some sunglasses. Each person saw only one version, either the physical item by itself, just the NFT, or the digital twin combo. Then they simply asked them, so, how likely would you be to buy this?
All right, so what happened? What did they actually find? Well, at first glance, the results looked pretty clear. But, as you can probably guess, there was a much more interesting story happening just beneath the surface.
Across all 3 studies, one product came out as the hands-down winner. As this chart makes super clear, people were most likely to buy the digital twin, that physical and digital hybrid. It seems we love the security of having something real in our hands, but we're also really excited by the digital bonus. So, a clear win for NFTs, right? Or is it?
And this is where it gets really, really interesting, because the researchers then threw in one more variable, and it completely flipped the results on their head. That game-changing factor was perceived sustainability, basically how eco-friendly people thought the brand was.
And this slide right here, this shows the paradox they discovered. Check this out. You have a brand that people already see as being highly sustainable. Then, that brand adds an NFT to its product. Suddenly, consumers see a mismatch. They think, wait, this green product has this tech thing attached to it, and isn't that tech bad for the environment? That feeling of inconsistency makes the brand seem less legit, and boom, their desire to buy the product actually goes down.
And listen, this isn't just some academic theory. In their early interviews, the researchers heard this exact concern from people in the industry. This quote from a luxury brand manager nails it. They said if NFTs are just being used to sell more physical stuff, then it's kind of hard to argue they're really helping the planet. It perfectly captures that skepticism the study found in consumers.
So what's the bottom line? Why does any of this matter? Well, this isn't just some interesting finding for a research paper. It has huge, real-world implications for how brands need to think about technology, sustainability, and, well, not shooting themselves in the foot.
The big takeaway here is what the researchers call the legitimacy trap. Basically, if your whole brand identity is built on being sustainable, you can't just slap an NFT onto a product and expect a high five. For your customers, it can feel inconsistent, like a gimmick. Or even worse, it can look like greenwashing, where a company just pretends to be eco-friendly, and that can destroy trust in a second.
So what should brands do? The research actually gives a pretty clear roadmap. First, your sustainability story has to be authentic and consistent through and through. Second, if you are going to get into NFTs, that digital twin hybrid model seems to be the safest bet with consumers. Third, be open about the tech. If you're using a more energy-efficient blockchain, shout it from the rooftops. And finally, and most importantly, just make sure that any new tech you adopt actually fits with your core brand values. That's how you avoid that legitimacy trap.
All of this leaves us with a really big question to think about. As our lives become more and more digital, what do we truly value more? Is it the tangible object we can actually hold in our hands, or is it the unique digital idea or status that it represents? This research shows we're all still figuring that out, and the answer is a lot more complicated than you might think.